First, I hooked my MC707 to MIDI port 1 out of the Cirklon to use as the multi-timbral drums and synth source, and my key step for keyboard input to the MIDI port in 1 into the back of the Cirklon. MIDI port configuration was easy. So by hitting Menu and then clicking this More button to MIDI port config and click that, and you can see the MIDI port setup referring to the MIDI ports on the back there. And because the soft through setting I have set to edit track, the incoming MIDI messages from my key step will be retransmitted on a different MIDI channel depending on the track I'm currently editing. So I can use one master keyboard to input to any MIDI channel, and this Cirklon will keep switching which channel my keyboard is controlling. I'm going to start by creating a new song by hitting Shift Song, Create New, and then I'm going to highlight the field where the name is and click on that with the value encoder. The encoders and the buttons become typing keys. This is a picture of a typical DAW, and you see the tracks from top to bottom. Green is drums, yellow is bass, blue is melody, and purple is pads. And it moves left to right. And you can see that the drums come in for 4 bars, then the bass comes in, etc. For the Cirklon, I'm thinking about it like this, in terms of scenes made up of 4 bars. And so with the Cirklon, I'm going to work on the first scene called the work scene and start saving these numbered scenes. And you could quickly get what is pictured here by creating the work scene what you see in scene 5 first, and just mute everything but the drums and save that as scene 1. Then unmute the bass and save it as scene 2, and so forth until you have all of these scenes for your song. Or you can make these scenes one at a time. So this little bit here is out of chronological order. I'm at the end of my project now, and I see that I'm talking about scenes here, so I just wanted to splice this in here. If you double tap the scene button, these are the scenes that I created while I was making that track. So scene 1 it's like the diagram that I showed earlier that I made, that I divided the whole song up into scenes. And so scene 1 just has the drums and the bass together. Then I moved on to scene 2. I added some other instrument to that, and so forth all the way to the final one. And then the function of the song is, well, one of the functions of it is to start with scene 1 and just play through that scene list there. I'm going to change the tempo of my song to 118 like the original. Then I'm going to hit the scene button, and you see that the default scene I'm in here is work scene. So my song structure is going to be made up of these scenes that I make in work scene, and then I save them as a numbered scene. A global bar length, 16 steps. The length of the working space that I'm creating this scene in is 4 bars. And you can see that at the bottom as well. You see little cross hatches there indicating 4 bars. Switching over to track. You can mute the different tracks using the numbered buttons. And you can select the different tracks using the clickable encoders. And you can see up here on the screen where it says track that I'm in track 2, 3, 4, and on up. Is where you want this MIDI to go to. So I'm going to click on the value encoder, and I'm going to do this one-time task of creating an instrument definition for my MC707. And you tell it which MIDI port on the back you're using to go out to the MC707 and which MIDI channel it's communicating on. Now, the way I showed previously in this video, where I set it up under MIDI, I've got it set in a way that as I switch to the different tracks, it's going to switch MIDI channels for me. And part of that is to have the settings here in the instrument definition where multi is set to on, so that it knows that as I go through these different tracks that I intend to have each one go to my multi-timbral sound source, and I would like, track 1 to be MIDI channel 1, track 2 MIDI channel 2, etc. Now, by clicking at the field at the top there, I'll create a pattern. There are two types of patterns. There's the original type of Sequentix patterns, the P3, and I'm not talking about that in this video. I'm using the CK patterns, which is more of a grid-based piano roll style pattern. Now switching to the pattern button. Now with drums, you can do a setup here so that instead of saying C3 out to the left, it can be labeled something. And so with most drum machines, C3 is going to be the bass drum, so you can label it BD. Now if you just want to work on one bar out of the 4, you can hold down last and turn the bar encoder and change the length of what you're working on here in the pattern. Now you can use the row encoder to go to where I've got it labeled BD, and I can put in the kicks. But the original has accents and velocity, so I can change that on here by clicking the row encoder. And by using the gang button, I can select multiple steps at one time to change all at once and create that accented sound. Now with the hi-hats, it sounds like it, in the original track, that it rises up to the snare like a ramp. And you can create a gradient of values on the screen here by holding down on the encoder of the first step and turning the encoder of the last step where you want the gradient. And you can hear the volume of the hi-hats ramping up that gradient. It does that type of thing. There are little drum rolls in the patterns too that you can easily do on the Cirklon just by turning the value encoder while you're in pattern and changing the resolution. I'll start at the 32 resolution, then I'll go to the 64. When I turned it up to 64, now here's the same 3 steps are now located at 1, 3, and 5. And I'm just going to add steps in between that to get a tighter roll. There also seems to be some velocity or accent going on with his little roll as well, kind of a V shape that I'm going to put in by clicking row. Then I can change the velocity. I'll just mention here that after you go back and alter a pattern, maybe later on, be sure and save that pattern with a different name. Because if you had other scenes that used the same pattern, you'd also be changing those. So you have to be conscious of that and be careful of that. So having one pattern complete, I'm going to duplicate that out over 4 bars, and then I can make some changes here and there using the copy and double function. Now I can use the bar encoder to move through the bars, as you can see at the bottom of the screen there. Now with the first 4 bars of the drums playing here, I hit the track button, clicked one of the encoders for track 2, and unmuted track 2, and the Cirklon switched my MIDI channel to channel 2 so I could play the second track on the MC707, which is a bass sound. So now I'm working on track 2, pattern 2. And again, I'm in the same work scene. I haven't saved any scenes yet. Now I'm recording the bass line in live using my key step, and you see at the bottom of the screen there, live record. That's a really cool feature where it just waits on you to hit the first key, and then at that point starts recording your pattern. By hitting the scene button twice, you can see your scene list. And from there, you can hit menu and see how you could return to your work scene, or you can turn one of these scenes into the work scene. So here I'm headed into the second part of the original song, and it completely changes. The bass line changes, the rhythm changes, and everything. I want to extend that out. Pattern, copy and double. Now I get 4 bars of that. Let me try to do this bass. All right, here we go. Here it is. You can see the little blobs, as they are called, where the notes are on the grid there. If when you're in pattern, if you click the bar encoder, you can turn follow on so that as the song plays through your 4 bars, it will switch to the 4 different screens. Well, thank you for watching my first experience with Cirklon, where I just kind of narrated a video that I took while I was making the track, and just kind of narrated over the top of it. And I hope there was something in there that might make your journey with the Cirklon just a little easier when you first get it. Of course, this is just the beginning. I need to hook the Cirklon up to my Eurorack modular, of course, and also my vintage synthesizers that I have, and I need to get something going with that, maybe a vintage drum machine as well. And so that's the next project that'll be coming up, and then a lot of modulation along with that happening on the Cirklon. So there's a lot coming up here. Now this MC707 project, which really just consists of those synth patches that I used today, will be on my Patreon. So I hope you can come over there and join my Patreon, and you can ask me directly about any experiences I've had here with the Cirklon. And as always, I hope you'll subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.